々と送られてくるゲームソフトの放送プログラムを家庭で楽しむスーパーファミコン専用衛星放送アダプターサテラビュー。
選ぶのが効果的です。
グレース、お前にだけは負けたくねえぜ。オッケー、オーライ。おっと。
The year is now 2016 or later, and you as a modern gamer are used to all sorts of online amenities to play as Tracer, or whatever the flavour of the month currently is. High-speed broadband allows for all sorts of advantages, including patches for games that have already been physically released, online multiplayer with anyone in the world, DLC, and even demos. In fact, even whole games can be downloaded digitally now, taking physical disc and cartridge-based games out of the equation completely. What if this was not in fact something that started with the Dreamcast, specifically with downloading whole games? What if this was actually possible in 1995? You may think that's a tad crazy with the internet available at the time, but the Nintendo Satellaview achieved this. It didn't using the internet, mind you, but as mentioned in its own name, utilized satellites. Yes, if you were in Japan between 1995 and 2000 and had a Super Famicom, a BS tuner, and paid a monthly subscription to St. Giga, then this would have been something that was possible for you. It truly is now a wonder of the retro gaming world. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Let's look at how this partnership between Nintendo and St. Giga initially began. First off, you might be wondering what St. Giga was. It was a satellite radio company in Japan that started operation in 1991, which mostly broadcast new wave music using the BS network, which was a series of Japanese broadcasting satellites. This could be accessed by using a BS tuner, a dish, and by paying a monthly subscription. St. Giga had a small, dedicated fan base, but by 1994, when Japan's recession was in full swing, they found themselves in financial difficulties. This is when their partnership with Nintendo kicked off. Nintendo bought a 19.5% controlling stake in St. Giga, and from there, the company started primarily broadcasting data instead of just music for Nintendo's Super Famicom system, which you may know of in the West as the Super Nintendo. These special services made possible by satellites included games, of course, as well as digital magazines and time sessions using something called Soundlink. There was a bit of a startup cost to access the future though. As well as obviously needing a Super Famicom, users needed the Satellaview adapter, which was a satellite modem that attached to the bottom of the Super Famicom, connecting into that expansion port which I bet you always wanted the purpose of. They also needed a BS tuner, as well as a satellite dish to decode the broadcasts, and they paid a monthly subscription to St. Giga, just like the new age music lovers had before. This all amounted to costing a small fortune. The Satellaview itself cost 14,000 yen, but the required BS tuner had to be bought from St. Giga for 33,000 yen, or could be rented for 6 months for 5,400. On top of that, there was also the monthly fee to St. Giga as just mentioned, but all content from that point onwards was delivered at no extra cost. A BSX cartridge slotted into the Super Famicom like a regular game cartridge, and this was more or less the menu interface for the service. But instead of a boring old menu, it was presented as an RPG style game where the player's avatar could move around a game level of a town to access system features. This was called the Story of the Town with a Stolen Name, and as well as game downloads, there are also notice boards scattered around written by Nintendo and St. Giga, announcing things like contest winners as well as future events. 8 memory packs plugged into the BSX cartridge, and these were rewritable memory cartridges used to save the downloaded games and game save data. These cost 5,000 yen each, and these memory packs could also be inserted into a small number of other Super Famicom games like RPG Maker 2. Data for that and other compatible games could also be downloaded through the Satellaview. For example, in the game Derby Stallion 96, extra horses and racetracks could be added. Even though Nintendo now had a controlling stake in St. Giga, there was still music played. But the broadcasting schedule was now mostly Super Famicom oriented. Being through a console, of course the games took center position in terms of availability and focus. The games available were split into 4 different categories. BS original games were Satellaview exclusives that were mostly released like modern day episodic content, kind of like any Telltale games today. They were all original, included titles such as Radical Dreamers, which was a sort of text adventure that was originally going to be based off the lore of Chrono Trigger. There's also what they called Best Selection games, which consisted of either direct ports of popular SNES games, or remixes or remakes introducing new features and sometimes improved graphics. One such example was BS F-Zero 2 Grand Prix, which included 5 new levels over the original. The game also utilised high quality audio thanks to the satellite broadcast, which would have not have been possible beforehand because of technical constraints, which brings us to the next game category, Soundlink. That high quality audio was only available at certain times when it was being broadcasted, included music but also live narration by radio DJs. This went hand in hand with the last category, monthly event games. In these, players could verse each other to get the best score, with there usually being prizes up for grabs, which were usually telephone cards or memory cartridges. Soundlink was also used to enhance single player experiences, like in the first episode of BS Legend of Zelda, The Ancient Stone Tablets, as seen here.
それは素晴らしい。そういえば。
This would have been amazing at the time since nothing close to CD quality audio existed on the SNES, but the downside was that it was only available for certain hours on certain days. Magazines were also a feature on the Satellaview, with hard copy publications like Nintendo Power having versions available that were readable on a TV screen. Most of these magazines were to do with gaming, but also included general interest publications. There are also Soundlink magazines, and while information on these is a bit hard to come by, they seem to be radio shows more than anything, maybe even what us weird future people would refer to as podcasts. These were hosted by celebrities and pop idols of the day. The Satellaview was likely not the huge success that Nintendo had hoped for, but while no official sales figures have ever been released, it's known that at its peak in 1997 to have over 116,000 subscribers, so it was definitely no failure by any means. Major developer studios Square and Enix did lend third-party support after all, before they were the same company anyway, with titles such as Treasure Conflicts and the before-mentioned Radical Dreamers. It all started to go wayward in the late 90s, however. It was an amazing service, that's for sure, but the high-priced entry bracket must have been a deterrent for some. Over that, the PlayStation and Sega Saturn were emerging around that time, and some gamers may have opted to spend their money on the newer technology instead. By 1998, the relationship between Nintendo and St. Giga was dissolving. St. Giga neglected to reapply for an important broadcast license, and also refused to go along with a debt management plan orchestrated by Nintendo. It was because of those reasons, and maybe more, that Nintendo decided to leave and stop supplying content for the Satellaview in 1999. St. Giga still limped on with what it had, more or less broadcasting reruns of the digital content, but ultimately discontinued the service in the June of 2000. Sadly, this was more or less the death rattle for St. Giga too. By 2001 it was going bankrupt and had merged with YB Incorporated, but had a further blow when the director passed away. It was relaunched as Club Cosmo in the March of 2003, but by the October of that year, the licensing rights were sold to World Independent Networks Japan Incorporated, and that was that. So, with the Satellaview long gone, what can we learn from it? An important aspect to consider is game preservation, since many gaming events on the console happened in real time. Any other old console can probably be emulated, since the games came out in a static form, but for the Satellaview, certain things have likely now been lost forever. The Soundlink games, for instance, couldn't be replayed after their broadcast since all audio was streamed in real time, and since the memory packs were rewritable, lots of the downloaded data was eventually overwritten for new content. Luckily for those interested in these sort of things, there are groups of people out there actively dumping the cartridges in the hope of finding something that's been unseen for 20 years. I won't go into full details here since it could probably be a video in itself, but there is a super good motherboard article describing the scene, which I'll link in the description below. It does, however, paint a fairly bleak picture for current gaming, since a lot of it is now digital only. Will the same thing start happening if certain servers and services stop operating? How much current gaming will be available for future generations to enjoy? Those are questions I don't have the answer to, but it's something to think about as physical copies for games become less and less common. Hello retro gamers, and thank you so much for watching. I just want to start by saying that all my sources are listed in the description, as well as the links for all the video footage shown if you want to see more. Secondly, please tell me what you think of this new type of video. I've dabbled in more history focused videos before, but it's something that I definitely want to keep doing regularly if the interest is there. Other ideas I have for the series include the Sega Channel, which was a similar service for the Genesis but used cable instead, and the Net Yorosi, which was a PS1 game development tool released to the regular sticky and smelly masses. But anyway, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.